Hi everyone, Morgan here. So this is another edition for the 30 Days of Preparedness collaboration. And today I want to talk about how to cook with your preps and just generally how to cook in general. Like, I think a lot of people have been very, kind of coming to the realization that cooking is really important, especially during the pandemic. While a lot of people were still ordering out and stuff, a lot of people were like, oh man, now I gotta like cook, And so cooking is definitely important, especially with your preps. A lot of people just buy preps, but then they're like, well, how do I cook with this? How do I make stuff with this? Especially beans and rice. A lot of people don't even know how to cook beans. And I have done a video about that. So if you store stuff, better make sure to learn how to make with it. But by opening up a cookbook, you will find supplies that you will actually want to prep. So for instance, if I were to start going through this book, this is a bread book, by the way, I'm making some breads for this video. If I were to go through that book and say, oh, wow, this bread needs molasses. I love making this bread. And she's just having a ball over here. And if I want to make that bread, then I'm going to want to store molasses, right? So, I might have everything else, the flour, the yeast, the salt, whatever. But if I want to continue to make that specific bread, I would want molasses. And there is nothing wrong with storing specific things for the recipes that you like. If you like certain recipes, then store the stuff for those recipes. Okay? There's nothing wrong with that. So again, one of the best ways to know what to store is going to be through cooking, but also cookbooks. So just for reference, just for yeast, since today I'm in this specific video, I'm going to be making rolls as I talk about cooking with your preps. But yeast, there are many ways to make no yeast bread, but I do store yeast. I store yeast. You can either store it in the fridge or the freezer for longer term, and you can use it straight from the freezer or fridge. You don't have to thaw it out or anything. So this actually calls for 1 packet of this instant yeast. So in it goes, bam! But yeah, it'll store for so long in the freezer and fridge, and you can use it just straight out of that freezer or fridge. So I tend to use a lot of flour. So I will store a lot of ground flour for a lot of everyday uses. And I will also put in Mylar bags because I use it a lot. But I will also store wheat berries because I do make a lot of stuff with flour. Right now I'm making dinner rolls. The biggest piece of advice that I can use about cooking with your preps is to just cook and bake from recipes. And then you're gonna learn what's important with the recipe. Like I just made some chocolate banana muffins. It called for walnuts, and I omitted walnuts because I don't like walnuts. Husband does, so he's looking at me like all mad because he wants the walnuts in it. But I mainly made them for the kids, and they're not going to eat it with the walnuts. So I omitted the walnuts, and I knew that the walnuts were not an important part of it. The flour is important, the baking soda, the little bit of sugar, the eggs, the bananas, those were all important stuff, okay? And I knew that those were important, so I kept those in, but I knew what I could omit, right? So like, if a recipe calls for something you don't like, there's a lot of recipes that call for like onions, and I'm like, nope, not adding that. And sometimes a recipe will call for something very specific, like, a can of a certain type of soup, but I don't have that exact type. Like I made a tuna casserole the other day and it called for cream of mushroom soup, but all I had was cream of celery soup. I put it in still and it was amazing. Just as long as it was some type of a creamy soup is all it wanted. It didn't change the flavor basically at all. So you learn by doing, okay? You find a recipe. You say, okay, I have beef. Let's say you have like a can of beef. Okay, I have a can of beef. So now you're going to search for some recipes either in an actual cookbook, or if you still have the internet, you are going to search for that on the internet. Okay, what can I make with, let's just say ground beef, right? What can I make with ground beef? All these recipes are going to come up. You're going to say, oh, look, I have pasta. I have pasta sauce. I have ground beef. I'm going to make some spaghetti. Bam, right? So you realize what you have, And then you also realize the things that you might need to stock up on. Like, oh, well, I don't have that, but I really want to make this recipe, right? Like, I really want to make some lasagna. Maybe I should store, lasagna pasta, or maybe I should learn how to make pasta. You know what I mean? Like, it spirals into this whole thing. And then you learn, like, oh, well, I use a lot of butter. Well, butter has a shelf life, right? But powdered butter has a long-term shelf life. So you you store the powdered butter for that longer term, and then use butter. Butter can last for a long time. Or you can get ghee or whatever. And you can use that for like shorter term stuff. And when I talk about recipes a lot, you don't need any cookbooks that are like specifically for food storage. Literally, all you do is you look at a recipe. Let's say a recipe takes eggs. Well, if you don't have fresh eggs, you can use powdered eggs to substitute. Look at a recipe that takes fresh stuff. Let's say it's a recipe that uses like a lot of fresh vegetables. Well, you could dehydrate vegetables, or you could get freeze-dried vegetables. In soups, man, those are amazing. In fresh stuff, it can work really well as well. It just kind of depends on what we're talking about and how you reconstitute it and all that. But, using any recipe and then trying to adapt it for food storage needs is going to create a highly valuable skill for you, okay? You're going to be cooking your everyday stuff, and then you're going to think, this mac and cheese takes takes milk and butter. Well, I store powdered milk and I store powdered butter. I'm all set. Great. And you can store whatever you want. You don't have to store just that fresh stuff, or think that, once this fresh stuff is gone, it's gone. I've made pasta sauce out of powdered milk, and it came out really good. I actually have a video of it. So, there's a lot of stuff that you can make, from your food storage that can come out almost identical to that fresh stuff. It might be slightly different, but it'll be pretty dang close. And sometimes things will not turn out, and that's okay. That's why we are experimenting now. It's why we're cooking and baking now, so that we can understand the processes of things. We can understand how we might be able to change things up. Like, instead of using water to cook rice, you would use chicken stock, and storing chicken stock in, cans, or making chicken stock yourself is really easy. Chicken stock in cans last for a really long time. And so instead of using, precious water that can be used for something else, you can use the chicken stock to make other things. So it's just all about learning. Again, you don't need any specific like prepper food storage book. In saying that, there are a few good ones out there. I'm going to put links down below. You can sign up for my newsletter and you can get 22 recipes. It was a collab with a few people here on YouTube. So there's a bunch of recipes in there to get some ideas. Just start working with stuff. Start cooking and baking. So, rolls are done. They're perfect. I used to be really intimidated by a lot of baking stuff. Baking is a lot more of a science, and cooking, I can really play around with cooking, but the more that I do it, the more that I cook and the more that I bake, the more confident that I get. And that's the same principle with anything that we do. The more you do it, the better you're going to get, the more confident you become, and just, again, the better you're going to get. So with cooking and baking, number one, get some recipes, lots of recipes, screenshot it, print them, get cookbooks, have them readily available to you, okay? Sometimes I'll screenshot stuff and then I'll just let it like go off into the Netherlands of the cloud or wherever I'm saving it to. And the most important thing is to try to print it out as quickly as you can, okay? But you could also just, copy down a recipe, whatever you want to do, but have those physical recipes. Find your base. So with your food storage, you can use almost any recipe based off of whatever food that you're storing. And then you could just maybe omit stuff or add stuff or whatever you want to do. Like if it's just like a basic rice and beans, you want to add some vegetables, boom, do it. It'll probably enhance it. Don't forget the spices. Okay, spices are super important. And then, you know, build your food storage based off of the things that you like, based off of the recipes that you make, off of the food that you enjoy eating. And, you know, even if there's only one recipe that takes that one specific thing, sometimes it's a recipe I really like, and when I want to make it, I want to have all the stuff available. That's why you have a well-stocked pantry. You prep the stuff from that well-stocked pantry for your immediate everyday use, your short-term, and then your long-term layers of food storage. I have videos about pantries. I also have a 30 days of where I cooked food storage for 30 days. And again, I just want you to get creative. Maybe cook one food storage meal once a week, you know, from your food storage. And then you should be cooking on a regular basis. Just do it. The more often you do it, the better you're going to get. And you're going to end up hating buying food because you're going to realize I could just make this at home for like a quarter of the price. Right? Like I hate buying mac and cheese in a restaurant because I'm like, I could go home and make like $1, you know, mac and cheese for what it would cost, you know, $1 instead of spending $5 or $6 of it in the restaurant. I hate going to restaurants and buying food at restaurants because it's so expensive compared to how I can make it at home. So it's a good money saving. It's a good tip considering we need food to live. Cooking and baking are really good skills to have. So test those food storage skills out and cooking and baking skills out on a regular basis. Thank you all so much for watching. I encourage you to check out all the other people that are part of this 30 days of preparedness collaboration. The playlist is down below in the description. Thank you all so much for watching. Conquer tomorrow by preparing today. Bye-bye.